Intermingling with the incense and chanting, a little boy is welcomed into the family of God. In the 4th century, Georgia became one of the first regions in the world to adopt Christianity, and the Orthodox Church has played a central role in its culture ever since. Father Georgi's family has provided church builders and priests here since the 15th century. The only recent break came during Soviet rule when religious faith came under attack.
In 1937, all churches and monasteries were abolished here, and they exiled or shot the clergy, or forced them to abandon their ministry.
In 1988, he was the first priest to return to the church in the remote region of Svaneti, nestled in the gorges of the Caucasus Mountains. Upper Svaneti is so remote it was without electricity until 1977, and until just 8 years ago was cut off by snow every winter. When Norwegian Richard Beirug heard about it, he knew he had to visit. 6 years later, he's still there.
The Georgians were telling me all these fantastic stories about Svaneti. This was like close to heaven as you can come. Blonde people, blue-eyed, so beautiful, the most beautiful part not only of Georgia but probably of the world. So I wanted to go there one day.
The most celebrated location in Svaneti is Ushkuli, which has the distinction of being the highest settlement in Europe. It's also one of the most remote. The only way to get to this collection of villages that has been here since the 9th century is by a death-defying track that winds around steep cliffs. Locals say it has the ability to take your breath away, and they mean that quite literally.
In Svaneti there are about 200 of these swan towers, like the skyscrapers of the Middle Ages. So this is a very unique part of European cultural heritage. The isolation of Svaneti has always played a special role in Georgian history. This was where they kept the most precious valuables because it was so hard to enter for enemies. And also for the communists, it was hard to enter Svaneti. Communism came to Svaneti only in 1924, several years later than it came to Georgia. And I don't think that communism got so strong in Svaneti as many other places, because here the communists that came here, they had to take into account these strong local traditions.
Ushkuli was awarded UNESCO Heritage status in 1993. There are only about 70 families living here now, and because of the remoteness of the region, they have kept alive folk rituals dating back to the Middle Ages. Watch here as they celebrate what they call the Day of Prayer, a ceremony during which they slaughter a cow and offer it up as a sacrifice to the church before the seasonal cutting of the grass.
And in Svaneti, the world with pagan tradition or pre-Christian tradition and Christian tradition are very much merged and live well together in a way. So when the hunters are going hunting, they pray to God that the hunting will be good, but they also pray to the old goddess of Dal, which was the hunting goddess, before Christ entered Svaneti. On the exterior of the church, many churches have also heads of animals, which dates back to the time before Christianity came to Svaneti in the 6th century.
We are now in the Church of St. George, painted by the court artist Theodore in the year 1130. And if you turn around here, you also then see how Christian people were tortured because of their faith. Almost for 900 years this church has not been renovated, just been cleaned a little bit. So it's quite astonishing how the wall paintings have been preserved.
The sound of perhaps the oldest polyphonic music in the world. Vajtang Pilpani and his folk band sing songs which they say have echoed around these mountains for the past 4,000 years. One of the community's oldest residents, 100-year-old Katya, watches on with pride.
Svans were always good people, the best ones. Why? Because Svan men are brave, the women are ideal, they're heroes.
UNESCO can help preserve the buildings, but the challenge is preserving the rituals and the songs. Svan culture has been exposed to more change in the past few years than in the previous 1,000. 2/3 of the Svan songbook has disappeared from oral tradition over the past 2 generations. The intimate culture within which they were passed down no longer exists.
We had traditionally big family. Big family is when in one house is very many people together. For example, my mother is 81 years old and my father also. In the family of my mother was 37 people together. And in the family of my father was 29 people and everybody was singing. And in the evening they had not Facebook, they had not TV, newspapers, and for them Facebook was songs and dance and playing on the folk music instruments. It is biggest problem for the like Svanetian territory when are coming very many tourists when is moderning life, and it is very difficult keeping of the traditional.
The Zvan language broke away from traditional Georgians some 4,000 years ago. Father Georgi is on a crusade to keep it alive. The Orthodox Church forbids him to preach in Zvan, but he has found other ways to promote it, one of which is teaching the songs and dances to children through programs at the local cultural center.
Unfortunately, there's a very great danger of it disappearing. This is my great heartache, my great sadness. I have myself carried out a project in schools and tested the knowledge level of Svan and obtained extremely worrying results. Children up to 15 years of age have no significant knowledge of Svan, only 1 or 2 words. I myself try and switch to Svan when someone talks to me in Georgian. It's like a drop in the ocean. You can't completely protect a language by yourself. I don't want to preserve the language just to turn it into a monument. It must be a real, living entity, and that's my desire.
In his hands today is an emblem of that living hope. If Georgia joins the EU, a charter preserving minority languages should ensure Zvan will survive. But it will be up to children like this to take on the challenge and preserve the ways of their ancestors as the world heads towards the 22nd century.